Hi, this is Eric Lofholm, and welcome to Objection Handling Mastery. This is one of my favorite courses to teach. We are going to have a money conversation. The ideas that I'm going to share with you in this course are the exact ideas that I've used to close millions and millions of dollars in sales. In this course, I'm going to cover 14 of my most powerful objection handling techniques. All you need to do is go through these modules. Any of the modules that are especially impactful for you, watch it again and again and again. And I'll be coaching and mentoring you right through the video modules. And you can put these ideas right into your unconscious mind. So when you're with a live prospect, you'll know exactly what to say to get the prospect to take action. The good news is there's typically only 7 to 12 common objections in any industry. Not 70 to 100, 7 to 12. So all you have to do is get down great responses to 7 to 12 of the common objections. They're going to show up again and again and again. My mentor, Dr. Donald Moyne, taught me, Eric, have multiple responses for each of the common objections that come up. So again, we're going to cover 14 great ideas. Any one of these ideas can help you close your next sale. Well, let's jump in and get to work. There are 3 ways to handle the common objections. Handle the objection before it comes up. That would typically be done in the body of the sales presentation. You would script it out in advance so you know exactly how you're going to smash that objection, like the price is too high, or I need to talk it over with my partner or my spouse, or I need to think about it. The second way to handle an objection is after it comes up. So this would show up when you ask for the order and you're silent, like this. How do you feel about moving forward today? Now, in my world, I call that the final close. The final close is the sentence that you say when you ask for the order. Are you ready to get started today? We can start you off with a 1-month supply or a 3-month supply. What would work best for you? That's called an alternate of choice close. These are all examples of final closes. The third way to handle an objection is to ignore it. Just because the prospect says, I need to talk it over with my partner, does not mean you need to address that objection in order for them to make a buying decision. In some cases, you can just pretend you didn't even hear it, you continue right on with your presentation, and you ask for the order, and sometimes, even though you did not address the objection, they will still buy from you. So, we're gonna ask for the order, and then we're gonna be silent when we're selling one-on-one, and it's like giving the prospect the hot potato. When you ask for the order, and you're silent, the prospect's gonna say one of 3 things. They're gonna say yes, they're gonna say no, or they're gonna give you an objection. Like, the price is too high, I need to think about it, can you send me some more information? I need to talk this over with my spouse. Here's the great news, it's predictable. If you'll ask for the order and be silent, again, I call that the final close, the sentence that you say when you're asking for the order. It's like giving the prospect hot potato, and they're gonna say one of 3 things. Yes, no, or they're gonna give you an objection. I call this process, when you go back and forth between you and the prospect, elegantly dancing with the prospect. It's like a game of hot potato. I ask for the order, and then I'm silent. Are you ready to move forward? Give the prospect the hot potato. They say, Eric, the price is too high. Now I have the hot potato. Is that your only concern? Handle an objection with a question. Now they have the hot potato. Yes. Now I have the hot potato. Tell me more about that. It's called Investigative Selling. We'll cover that a little bit later on in the course. Now they have the hot potato. So that back and forth is called elegantly dancing with the prospect. Learning this, it's money for you. This is going to help you close sales, because think about this. You generated the lead, you set the appointment, you ran the appointment, you might have delivered a 40-minute presentation, you're at the finish line. And you say, are you ready to get started? Final close, you give them the hot potato. Eric, the price is too high. So we're right there, ready to close that sale. Now, the techniques I'm going to teach you in this course, you're not going to close every sale, but you're going to get some of those sales that you wouldn't have closed in the past had you not watched this course. So the next 45 minutes or so that we're going to spend today, this is going to be one of the most well-spent 45 minutes of your whole life, because I'm going to give you a skill set that you're going to have forever. And all you need to do is just sit back, enjoy the course, watch the modules, and the ones that are especially impactful for you, watch them again and again and again, like listening to one of your favorite songs. You learn the song in the unconscious mind through repetition, and that's what I want you to do with these modules. So great job for showing up for class today. If you're right-handed, take your right hand. If you're left-handed, take your left hand. Pat yourself on the back. Tell yourself, great job for showing up for class today. All right, let's dive in to some more great content here. The other three, when it comes to objection handling, are the three ways to elevate your objection handling ability. And that's the inner game of objection handling, your mindset, your belief about your ability to handle the common objections. The outer game, number two, is the how-to techniques for handling objections. Every how-to technique can be learned. That's an empowering idea. Every how-to objection handling technique can be learned. And the third way is action. Now, you're taking action right now by watching this course. This is a form of action. You'll need to continue to study objection handling. Think of it like this. What does an athlete do? An elite world-class athlete. Somebody like a Tiger Woods in golf, Tom Brady in football, LeBron James in basketball. What do? They do the fundamentals over and over and over again. They visualize the fundamentals. They practice to the point where they have increased confidence, which strengthens their inner game. They do the same moves over, like Tiger Woods putting. He putts over and over and over. In sales, work on your game. That's what we're doing here, and I'm going to give you some suggestions throughout the course on specific things that you can do to get better at objection handling, and this will work for you. All you need to do is just show up for class like what you're doing right now. Go through this class, and you are going to get better, predictably better at objection handling by going through this course. Let's dive into these 14 great ideas. Idea number one, it's probably the best of all the ideas, is to apply continuous sales improvement to your objection handling skill set. So what does that mean? Well, continuous sales improvement is how we went from a bottom producer in the early 1990s to a top producer, to then being a top producer with another company, to being a top producer with another company, to starting my own sales training company in 1999, and then getting to an elite level in my sales training ability. Continuous sales improvement. I kept working on my skills, and I kept working on my skills, and I got better and better and better and better and better. One of my greatest assets that I have in business today is my skill sets, and these are skill sets that I developed by applying continuous sales improvement. Specifically, what that means is work on your skills for 15 minutes to an hour per week, every week for the rest of your life. Now, if you're able to squeeze in more than an hour, maybe you have a drive time where you're driving to and from appointments, or you like to exercise and you can put the earbuds in. If you can get in more than an hour a week, all the better. But the mindset is 15 minutes to an hour per week for the rest of your life. That says you've never arrived. That says you're always hungry to get better. So at my level, even though I've gotten to an elite status in my sales ability, I've not arrived. I'm not even close to my potential. I'm going to keep getting better and better and better. So this is what I want you to do in objection handling. It's not just going through this course and then you're done. It's continuing to work on your game and never stop working on your game. And this will get you better and better and better. Idea number two. Take the common objections in your industry, pull out your smartphone, hit the record button. You could do a video, or you could get an app that turns your smartphone into a voice recorder, and you hit record, either audio or video. You're going to state the objection and then state as many different responses as you know to that common objection. So I need to talk it over with my spouse. So you'll say that into the phone. I need to talk it over with my spouse. And then you'll give objection responses in your voice. What do you think your spouse is going to say? If your spouse says yes, does that mean that you'll move forward? Other than talking over with your spouse, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward? Other than talking over with your spouse, I'm sure that you have some other concerns before moving forward. Do you mind sharing what those concerns are? Is that your only concern? Tell me more about that. So every one of those responses are to the objection, I need to talk it over with my spouse. So you're going to say that in your smartphone. The objection you get and your responses, then what are you going to do? You're going to hit the play button, either with the earbuds in or off, and you're going to hear the objection and your best responses in your voice. And you're going to hear it over and over and over and over and over again. And what that's going to do, it's going to plant those responses in your unconscious mind. So when you're with the prospect, they give you the objection, you'll be able to instantly respond in the moment with powerful responses. That's a great tip, and that is money in the bank for you. Idea number 3, reduce the risk. So when you make an offer to somebody, you ask them for the order and you're silent, they're probably going to have some risk. If there's an investment required for your product or service, maybe it's $1,000, and so you ask them to buy and they're needing to invest $1,000, which is a risk for them. So reduce the risk. So one time I was talking to this company about providing some training, and they were unwilling to move forward. And I said, you have a conference coming up in Hawaii, correct? And they said, yes, we do. And I said, how about this? I will fly to Hawaii at my expense. I will deliver a dynamic keynote presentation to your audience of 800 people. I will waive my keynote fee. I will cover my hotel, my rental car. So you have zero cost, and I will deliver a professional dynamic keynote training for you as a way of adding value. And they said yes. So I flew to Hawaii at my expense. I delivered the training. Truly one of the best trainings I've ever done. I wish I had it on video. Got a standing ovation at the end. And that relationship turned into over $40,000 in sales training contracts for me. All because I took the risk up front. Now, we can't always do that. Sometimes when you're talking to somebody about buying from you, you can lower the risk a little bit. In my case, I did it massively, but it doesn't always have to be that big of a reduction in the risk. And so you just lower it a little bit, and then you represent that to them. Hey, how about we do it this way? And then you ask them to move forward. And the next thing you know, boom, you close the sale. Very powerful technique. Idea number 4, solve the problem. Sometimes when we ask somebody to buy from us, there's a hurdle, a very real problem that they're not going to buy unless you solve the problem. And one time I was recruiting somebody to come join my team. And this is many years ago before my company went virtual. And so if you worked for my company, that meant you lived in California and you worked out of our corporate office. And so I recruited this gentleman. His name is Keith, and he was living in Florida at the time. And so I delivered this recruiting presentation. I'm like, Keith, come move out to California. It's going to be great. We can build this company together. And I got Keith all excited. And I said, so are you ready to move to California? And he goes, not yet. And I said, really? Why not? Eric, I just signed a lease on my apartment. And it's a 6-month lease. And there's no way I can get out of it. So I'm going to stay here for the next 6 months. And then we can talk about me moving to California. Well, I wanted Keith to come work for me now, not in 6 months. And so I thought, let me solve the problem. How much is your lease, Keith? He said, I don't know. I said, well, could you ask your landlord what it would cost to buy you out of the lease. In other words, if I just cut you a check for the 6-month lease, so you were fulfilling the lease and it allowed you to move now, would you consider moving to California? And he said, yeah, I'd consider it. I said, great, get me that number and we'll talk. A couple days later, Keith calls me up. Okay, Eric, I got the number. How much? It's gonna cost about $5,000, Eric, to buy this lease out. Keith, if I cut you a check right now for $5,000 and change, whatever the difference is, whatever that amount is, will you move to California? And he said, yes. And so it cost me over $5,000 to get him, but I solved the problem for him. So I'm planting a seed in your unconscious mind, a seed of greatness that I want to grow into increased sales for you, that when you're in a live sales presentation, you ask for the order and the prospect says, I need to talk it over with my spouse, or I need to think about it, or I don't have the money, or the price is too high, or whatever they say, I want you to think about, is there a way for you to solve the problem? Because if something will work for you where you can solve the problem, you might end up closing that sale. Idea number 5, offer flexible payment options. Now, we can't always do this, but sometimes the amount of money up front that it takes to close the sale is what's holding the sale back. So I had a sales presentation just this past Friday, and it didn't start off as a sales presentation. I offered this person a free coaching call, and I did not come to the call to make a sale. I came to the call to deliver a coaching session. And towards the end of the coaching session, the client said to me, what other services do you offer? And so I started telling the client about one of my programs, and this particular program was around $800. And when I talked to her about the price of the program, I could tell $800 today was an obstacle. And I said to her, listen, I can offer you this program, all of the benefits that I previously mentioned, with the following payment terms: $199 now and $199 a month for 3 more months. So a total of 4 payments of $199. And she said, you know, Eric, I'd like to do this. It's something that I really need to talk it over with my husband. And I said, how about this? I'll create a custom online link for you. I'll email it to you. That'll give you some time to go over this with your husband. And then after you talk with your husband, you can use the link and you can order online. And she said, Eric, that sounds great. Now, I could have tried to overcome the spouse objection right then and there. I could have said to her, how about we just go ahead and move forward? And she might have said yes. In this particular case, I chose to use the strategy of sending her the link, and she ordered. So I made the sale. If I had required her to do the full $800 up front, and it was a little bit less than $800, but it was right around that amount, there's a good possibility that she would not have purchased. So we can't always offer flexible payment options, but sometimes it is an option. And if that's the case and you make the full price option and they give an objection, you might say, if I offered you a flexible payment option, would that help you? If they say yes, present to them an option, and you might end up closing a sale by simply changing the payment options. Idea number 6, non-stated objection. When you ask for the order and you're silent, and the prospect gives you an objection like, the price is too high, that might not be their main concern. Let's say you sell alarm systems and you deliver your presentation and they say, you know what, the price is too high. And you're trying to overcome this objection, and the real issue is tomorrow they're meeting with another alarm salesman. But they forget to tell you that. So you're trying to overcome the one objection about price, and the real issue is they want to talk to the other alarm salesperson from the other company before making a buying decision, but they don't tell you that. This is why the elegantly dancing with the prospect technique is so powerful, because at times you'll be talking to somebody and you'll ask for the order and give them the hot potato, and then they'll give you an objection, they give you the hot potato, and you respond and they respond, and you're going back and forth. Remember, that's I call it elegantly dancing with the prospect. Well, sometimes they'll, in the middle of the communication, say, "Can I be honest with you?" And of course you say, "Sure." Here's the real issue. I'm meeting with another alarm salesperson tomorrow, and I want to talk to them before I make a final decision. And so now you get to the real issue. But they didn't state it. It was a non-stated objection. So what does that all mean? It's just another logical argument for why you want to have a variety of techniques, a variety of talk tracks about how you're going to banter back and forth between you and the prospect. Idea number 7, handle the objection before it comes up. Many years ago, I was in a timeshare sales presentation. I was the prospect. And the other person said to me, "Here at our company, we don't negotiate price. The price is the price. However, we do offer same-day incentives." Now, this was shared with me early on in the presentation. So what is that talk track doing? Here at our company, the price is the price. We don't negotiate price. So that's their way of knocking out the objection. I'll buy your timeshare today if you offer it at a lower price. So they're knocking the objection out before it even comes up. Now, that doesn't mean that that objection's not going to come up. The prospect might say, "Hey, I'll buy it if you'll sell it at a lower price." But then the salesperson would then logically say, "As you might remember at the beginning of the presentation, I shared with you that at our company, the price is the price." Then we offer same-day incentives. So what's that talk track designed to do? Knock out the objection. I need to think about it. So if I got to the end and they said, "Would you like to move forward?" And I said, "Well, I'm really interested, but I'm going to need to sleep on this. I'm going to need to think about it." Then they would say, "As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we offer same-day incentives, and you could certainly think about it tonight, but I wouldn't be able to offer you the take action bonuses that I'm offering you today." So likely the prospect's not even going to say, "I need to sleep on it," because the salesperson addressed the objection before it came up. And the objection, in some cases, magically disappears. The prospect never even raises the objection. Now, how does that happen? It's addressing the objection strategically in the body of the presentation before it comes up. Another technique for doing this exact same strategy is to handle an objection in a story in the body of the presentation. So what you would do is you would think about somebody who's bought from you in the past that had an objection, like the price is too high, but still bought from you. So in the body of your presentation, you would say, "Let me share with you a quick story about one of my clients. And here's who they are, and here's what they bought, and here's why they bought it. And what's interesting is when I first talked to them, they thought the price was too high. And what I explained with them was benefit, benefit, benefit. And by me clearly communicating out to the prospect, they said, 'You know what? That makes sense. Let's go ahead and move forward.'" So you embed the objection, the price is too high, inside of a story in the body of the sales presentation. This is an incredibly powerful technique. And this can help knock out objections before they even come up. Now, what I just told you is going to require some effort on your part. You're going to have to really think about, well, what are these stories? And you're going to have to organize these talk tracks to the point where you can deliver on this flawlessly during the body of your presentation. That technique, put a gold star by it, because that's a gold star idea, and that's money in the bank for you. Idea number 8, be unreasonable. The best way for me to teach you this technique is to tell you a story about my first wife. And I wanted the two of us to go to this seminar called Money and You. And it was on a certain weekend, and I went to her and I said, "Hey, I really want us to do this seminar together." And she goes, "Well, when is it?" And I gave her the dates. And she goes, "Well, I can't make it that weekend." And I said, "Well, why not?" She said, "Because I'm taking the kids to go see your parents." And I said, you can take the kids to see my parents any weekend. It doesn't need to be this weekend, so just change the date. Let's go to the seminar together. And she said, well, I already bought the airline tickets. And they're non-refundable. And so she thought that that was the end of it, right? Non-refundable plane tickets, right? If we cancel a plane ticket, it's just money down the drain. So I was unreasonable. And I said, listen, this seminar is that important that I want us to eat those tickets, go to the seminar together, and then you can take the kids to see my parents another time. And she said, okay. And we went to that seminar together. And that was over 15 years ago that we went to that seminar. And the owner of that company is a woman named Doria Cordova. And I just did some business with Doria Cordova a couple of weeks ago. 15 years later, all because I went to this seminar, because I moved my wife to action by being unreasonable. And sometimes what you're proposing is that important that you make an unreasonable request to the prospect. And it's your way of saying, what I'm proposing to you is that important that I'm going to be unreasonable. Idea number 9, handle an objection with a question. So, how do you feel about moving forward? That's my final close. Give the prospect the hot potato. Eric, I have to talk it over with my wife. What do you think your wife's going to say? So that was a question. Or, are you ready to move forward? Eric, the price is too high. How much too much is it? Handle with a question. One of my favorite questions. Ask the prospect to move forward. They say, I need to think about it. The price is too high. I need to talk it over with my partner. Whatever they say. You say, is that your only concern? Is that your only concern? You want to burn that one into your unconscious mind because you can use that exact question no matter what the prospect says. Eric, the price is too high. Is that your only concern? What you're going to find is that when you're with the prospect, your very next presentation, and they give you an objection, you're going to immediately remember, oh, is that your only concern? So you ask for the order and you're silent. You give the prospect the hot potato. They give you an objection. You have the hot potato. Is that your only concern? And then you're silent. Now, it's probably not going to close the sale, but it's going to keep the conversation going, and it might get you one step closer to a close. One time I was talking with a prospect, and I said, are you ready to move forward? And he said, Eric, I don't have the money. And I said, Dane. Now, one of the sweetest sounds to another human being is their first name. So I said, Dane, if you don't do this, then what are you going to do? Handled it with a question. Said his first name. If you don't do this, then what are you going to do? True story. He said, do you take American Express? I said, yes, I do. He then said, could you split my payment into 2 payments, half now and half in a month? I said, yes, I can. And I closed that sale. It was a $5,000 sale. And that person is still, Dane is still a client of mine all these years later. So, are you ready to move forward? Eric, I don't have the money. If you don't do this, then what are you going to do, Dane? Do you take American Express? Yes. Can you split it in 2 payments? Half now, half in 30 days? Yes. And I closed that sale. You see, when I asked Dane for the order, I had generated the lead, I had set the appointment. I was about 40 minutes into that presentation, and I was that close to closing the sale. And fortunately, I had the great response that produced the result to successfully close that sale. And you are going to have many stories just like that. Sales that you wouldn't have closed, but you're using these techniques, and you're going to make those sales and create value for those clients. Idea number 10. This is one of the most powerful ideas of the entire course. Handle an objection with a story. You can do it 2 different ways. Before it comes up, in the body of the presentation, tell a success story of somebody else that you worked with that had an objection. State what the objection is, like the price was too high, I need to think about it. Can you send me some information? I don't have the time. So you would embed the objection in the body of the story to make the objection disappear. Or after you ask for the order and you're silent and the prospect says, I just don't have the time right now. And then you say, let me share with you a quick story about one of my clients, and they had the same concern as you. Now, never use the word objection with a prospect. Use the word concern. So let me share with you a quick story about one of my clients. They had the same concern as you. They didn't feel like they had the time either. And what I shared with them was benefit, benefit, benefit. And they said, you know what? That really makes sense. Let's go ahead and move forward. I think you could enjoy similar benefits as my client. Are you ready to move forward? So I handled the objection by telling a quick story of someone else that had the exact same objection. And then I'm going to re-ask for the order and be silent. So in order to execute on this, you've got to practice these stories. You got to think about, what are the stories I can tell? You probably want to script them out, write them down, practice them. Remember the athlete who's putting over and over and over again, the three-point shooter in basketball, shooting those shots or dribbling over and over and over again. Practicing as sales professionals, this is what we want to do. We want to work on our skills just like an athlete. Because if you do this, this is money in the bank, and you will close certain sales that you would not have closed had you not done this course and had not practiced. Remember, idea number 1, CSI, continuous sales improvement. I want 15 minutes to an hour of you working on your skills every week for the rest of your life. Idea number 11, isolate. So here's the language pattern. Other than blank, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward? The blank part is the objection. So, how do you feel about moving forward? Give the prospect a hot potato. And then be silent. Eric, I need to talk this over with my husband. So now I have the hot potato. Then I isolate. Other than talking over with your husband, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward today? That's isolate. Or, Eric, I don't have the time. Other than the time, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward today? Gives the prospect a hot potato back. Eric, the price is too high. Other than the price being too high, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward today? See, it's a very universal language pattern that can be used with virtually any objection that you get. So this is one you want to practice and you want to burn that into your unconscious mind. Now where it gets really powerful is when you layer the techniques. How do you feel about moving forward? Eric, the price is too high. Other than the price being too high, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward? No. Tell me more about that. That's called investigative selling. Or, is that your only concern? Or, let me share with you a quick story about another client that had the same concern as you. So you layer the techniques. Keep watching this course, watch it again and again and again, especially the modules that are incredibly impactful for you, to put these thoughts into your unconscious mind, all 14 of these ideas. Idea number 12, bring out the objection. Years ago, I got Frank Bettcher's book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. One of the best books out there on sales. And he taught me this technique in the book. Bring out the objection. Frank said that in some cases, people have an objection that they haven't voiced yet. So you want to create a space for them to voice the objection. So it goes like this. It's similar to isolate, but it's a little different. So how do you feel about moving forward? Eric, the price is too high. So you would say, other than the price being too high, I'm sure that you have some other concerns before moving forward. Do you mind sharing what those concerns are? Eric, I need to talk it over with my business partner. Other than talking over with your business partner, I'm sure you have some other concerns. Do you mind sharing what those concerns are? In this case, you're encouraging them to give you more objections. And when you would use this technique is when your intuition's telling you, they said the price is too high. I don't think that's the real issue. They said they need to talk it over with their partner. I think there's more to it than that. So when that red flag goes on your brain, there's more to it than that. You say, other than the money, I'm sure that you have some other concerns before moving forward. Do Do you mind sharing what those concerns are? Idea number 13. And this one's super easy, and yet it's very powerful. It's called investigative selling. Act like a private investigator. So, are you ready to move forward? Eric, I don't have the money. Tell me more about that. So you're looking for clues. I need to talk it over with my wife. Tell me more about that. The price is too high. Tell me more about that. Eric, I don't have the money. Tell me more about that. Eric, the timing just isn't right. Tell me more about that. You want to burn that one into your unconscious mind. Anytime you ask a question, including asking for the order, you can always say, tell me more about that. So you're asking probing questions. Ask the probing questions, they respond. Go deeper by saying, tell me more about that. Idea number 14, the last idea of the course, ask your coworkers or your peers for their best responses to the common objections in your industry. Because there's a great possibility if the scripts or talk tracks are working for them, they'll work for you as well. There's so much that we can learn by talking to other people in professional sales, whether they're in your industry or not. If they're not in your industry, they probably get the objection, the price is too high, or I need to think about it, or the timing just isn't right. Ask them, how do you handle it? Or if they're in your industry, ask them, how do you handle it? The best idea is write them down, speak them into your smartphone, practice it over and over and over again, and you will get better at objection handling. So that wraps up this course. Great job for showing up for this class. You did the entire program. Way to go. If you're right-handed, take your right hand. If you're left-handed, take your left hand. Pat yourself on the back. Tell yourself, great job for going through this entire course. Be your own cheerleader. I'm a big believer in acknowledging ourselves. I believe when we acknowledge ourselves, it raises our self-esteem and helps us peak perform. So I've given you 14 ideas, specific step-by-step instruction, things that you can do to become more effective at objection handling. Continue to work on these skills. This is a money course, as I've told you. Implement these ideas and you're going to close sale after sale after sale that you never would have closed had you not taken this course and learned these powerful ideas. I want to acknowledge you for being a professional, for taking your career serious, for working on your skills. And I'm excited for what this information is going to do for you now and in your future. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to connecting with you in another mastery course.